Hi, Nima. Thank you very much for having me on your show again. It's always a great pleasure.
Let me start. Great pleasure as always, Professor Marandi. And let me start with what we've heard in the last 4 days. I talked with our mutual friend, Larry Johnson. He believes that the United States is preparing for new round of attacks on Iran. Let us know what is the perception in Iran about if the United States want to attack. Is the attack imminent? And what is going on in the
So I thought
mind
you
of
were going to.
Iranians?
I thought you were going to ask me about my shirt because you were discussing it with me before the show. Just apparently, some of your viewers are saying so and so only wears one shirt. Well, I'm not as colorful as Larry, but I assure you, this it's not one black shirt. But I wear it for Muharram and Safar, as you know. I usually don't wear black, but my sons wear a black shirt for these 2 months. The Ashura, when to commemorate the martyrdom of Imam Hussein, and then the 40th day after his martyrdom, you have Arba'in, and some people wear black throughout this period, this 2 months. And I've never done that before, but my sons have been doing it for years, and this year I've been convinced to do it. So as soon as the month of Safar comes to an end, I assure you I'll be wearing a different, not the shirt that Larry gave me, but I'll be wearing a different shirt. But anyway, getting back to business, your show is all usually has something to do with shirts and the
Yeah.
different types of shirts people wear. Well, Larry, from my understanding, Larry is correct. The Iranians say that the Americans have prepared themselves for an assault. And it doesn't mean it's necessarily going to happen, but there is a strong possibility that the United States will carry out an assault in the coming days, a major attack, and it's quite possible that it will be done with the Israelis. U.S. forces in Kuwait, in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, in Bahrain, and the Emirates, in Jordan, are prepared. Uh, of course, you know that many of these forces are not in their bases; they're in hotels and in other buildings and in other areas in these countries, so that they can be hidden from so that they can be protected from Iranian missiles and drones. But U.S. warships are prepared. So there may be an assault on Iran that may last a while. No one knows for certain. The United States may back down, but they are preparing for an assault. And they brought in extra troops, ammunition, um, and jets for this assault, and of course in Israel too. I mean, whenever I say the U.S., I'm the U.S. and the Israeli regime. You can inter-exchange them, but it's not clear if there's an attack, if the Israeli regime will participate or not. But in any case, the Iranians are on full alert. And as we know, the Iranians have said very clearly that if strikes are carried out against the country's infrastructure, Iran's response will be decisive. It will destroy Israeli regime infrastructure, but also Saudi, Emirati, Kuwaiti, Bahraini, Qatari infrastructure, and it will demolish these countries if Trump carries out his threats on Iran. And of course, we've discussed this many times before. It will lead to a collapse in the global economy because it will no longer matter if the Strait of Hormuz is open or not. And also, there won't be any oil exported from the Caucasus either under those circumstances. So, the Americans um, are are moving towards a very, very dangerous phase. And of course, the United States is being pushed by Netanyahu, the Israeli regime, and the Zionist lobby. They need to achieve something before, or they feel the need to achieve something before the elections in late October. The elections in Israel are in, I think, October the 27th or so. and in the United States, I think it's November the 3rd. There are also alternative plans. It's been said that Netanyahu's allies are going to carry out, or will possibly carry out, major atrocities in the West Bank in order to ethnically cleanse the West Bank and have Palestinians leave, like in when the Israeli regime was created, where they removed the Palestinians from the land. In order to win the election, they may carry out, Netanyahu's allies may carry out some. I mean, the outrages in the West Bank are just beyond belief, but they want to take this to a new level in the coming weeks. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. The next 2.5 months are going to be very, very dangerous. And of course, meanwhile, the siege on Iranian ports continues, and Iran has effectively carried out a counter siege by keeping the Strait of Hormuz shut. And with the conflict between Yemen and Saudi Arabia, the situation for the world is going to get worse and worse until the United States ultimately will be forced to back down.
We've learned yesterday we've learned that many of officials have been replaced or been appointed in Iran. The head of National Security Council, Mohsen Rezai, came, and we had Ahmad Vahidi being the head of IRGC. What is that? What is the message? What is happening inside Iran, and what is the main reason of these new appointments?
Well, some of these people are not really. There haven't been changes. Some of them have been in charge, but their names were not declared for security reasons because of the potential for war. But I think by announcing the names, it just shows that the Iranians are much more confident about the security of their officials now in case of war. And that, as the United States, some are saying that the Americans are preparing themselves for war. Well, so are the Iranians. Every day that goes by, the Iranians are preparing they're building more missiles, more drones. They're expanding their underground missile bases. They're expanding their command and control structures. They are developing new technology, new missiles, new drones, and they're enhancing their ability to block a land assault and to be able to carry out operations in the Strait of Hormuz, the Persian Gulf, and in the Arabian Peninsula. So these announcements, I think, are a sign of confidence in their position. Also, we saw that Ayatollah Seyed Mohammad Marandi, had a 7 to 8 hour meeting with President Pezeshkian, which I think is very significant. A 7-8 hour meeting is, pretty difficult. It's a very, very long meeting, but I think it just shows the degree of coordination that exists. But also, it just shows how things in Iran are normalizing despite the threat of war. The military leaders, their names have been announced. The leader and the president are having regular meetings, and they're fully coordinated. So I think all of this is a sign that Iran is prepared for the next stage. The most important change is Mohsen Rezai, Dr. Mohsen Rezai, becoming the chair of the Supreme National Security Council. I think this is a signal that Iran is going to be more assertive in dealing with the Trump regime. And also on the last day of the previous chair's time in the previous chair of the Supreme National Security Council's leadership of the council, he put out a statement, as we all know, saying that the only way that we'll have peace with the United States is if certain conditions are met. Some people are saying that is different from the MOU, but that's not the case. But it is saying that the MOU has to be fully implemented. It's a maximalist approach to the MOU. And so, for example, in the MOU, in Article 1, it speaks about Lebanon and regional allies, right? But here in that letter,
All fronts. They call it all fronts. Yeah.
yes, all fronts. In this letter by the outgoing chair of the Supreme National Security Council, Palestine is mentioned uh, um, specifically, so is Yemen, and so is Iraq alongside Lebanon. And it's not even Gaza, it's Palestine. So this is something that I've been saying on your show many times, that in the MOU, Gaza is included. And Dr. Ghalibaf, the chief negotiator, has said this to a number of Palestinian delegations and to Palestinian leader, the Palestinian leader, the leader of Hamas, who he spoke with on the phone. So, but this has been, it has been more clear that without an end to the genocide in Gaza, without an end to the war on the Palestinian people, this doesn't come to an end. Now, some may say that, well, then there's not going to be an agreement. That's something that the United States will have to think about, because they don't control the Strait of Hormuz. So the outgoing chair, who was, I think, not as assertive as Dr. Mohsen Rezai, his final statement was very hard, was very harsh, was very, was strong. But I think Dr. Rezai's appointment is a sign that Iran is going to be more assertive. And it's also going to strengthen the Supreme National Security Council, because he is a heavyweight. He, as you know, he's a very well-known person in the country. He was the head of the guards when Saddam Hussein invaded Iran. He basically built the guards. He was the chief architect. He created he took the initial steps of creating its air force and its navy too. He was also the longest serving chief of the Revolutionary Guards. He has a PhD, I think, in economics. Maybe I should have looked this up, but I think it has to do with economics. He was the economic, he was the economic deputy of President Raisi. And he's had a host of important jobs during the last 47 years. So, and the Supreme National Security Council is not just about war. It's not just about security. It's about everything. In other words, it's about social issues, economic issues, foreign policy. So all the issues that the state has to deal with is discussed in the Supreme National Security Council. And a heavyweight has to be there to coordinate the president, the head of the judiciary, the head of parliament, the armed forces, the foundations and the state-owned foundations and other entities that are affiliated to the state, in order for them to work together more closely, which is very important during these circumstances when the country is at war. So I think we're going to have a stronger Supreme National Security Council, more coordination between the different parts of the state, and a more, let's say, assertive position taken at the negotiating table, on the battlefield, when it comes to dealing with Iran's enemies.
I think one of his comments in April was important. He made this comment when the ceasefire was announced. I'm talking about Mohsen Rezai, the new head of this. He basically mentions that the offensive would be the best offensive when it comes to the United States. Do you think that the way that the United States is preparing itself to attack Iran today, you've mentioned that they're preparing for that. They may do this. We don't know if they're going to attack or not. But what would be the reaction on the part of Iranians? Let's assume if they attack, are they going to do the same way that it was before, the southern part of Iran, in the western part of Iran, and attacking these islands? Or are they going to escalate? They may hit some targets in Asaluya, for example, in the oil facilities in the southern part of Iran. What would be the reaction under the new sort of mindset in Iran if that's the case?
It's unclear. We don't know, because during the 40-day war, the United States and the Israeli regime bombed places across the country. They bombed on day one. They bombed schools. They bombed a hospital in Tehran, which is still closed, the Gandhi Hospital, and
The
the
pharmaceutical plants was, yeah, they
pharmaceutical
were.
plants. Yes, the steel industry. They also bombed a sports complex, killing a lot of girls who were playing volleyball, and they used a new missile to do it. And but during the 13-day war, where they after the U.S. violated the MOU and undermined it and restarted the war, they used a different pattern. The strikes were mostly focused on targets in the Persian Gulf region, the Strait of Hormuz. They still bombed schools and hospitals. I mean, the hospital in Ahvaz, the children's cancer hospital, was they bombed the complex, and the hospital was evacuated. I don't know if it's still empty or not, but they've destroyed health centers and public facilities, and they've murdered many people in their cars and families. On Qeshm Island, they bombed a family home, murdering a husband, wife, and their daughter, and their son, their 18-month-old son, and two other children were left as orphans, wounded, but survived. But the pattern was different. They didn't bomb the entire country. So it's unclear what happened next. But and I think this is very important, Nima. Look at Iran as over the past couple of years. First, they began with True Promise 1. And in True Promise 1, they were checking to see what capabilities the Israeli regime had. The Americans and the Israelis wasted a lot of air defense missiles to take down Iranian drones and missiles. In True Promise 2, the Iranians became more effective, also forcing them to waste a lot of their defenses. But as we moved forward, then the 12-day war, then the 40-day war, we saw that the Iranian capabilities became better and better. And then during the 13 days of fighting, when the United States attacked Iran again, after the United States wrecked the MOU, they attacked Iran for 13 days. And after 13 days, they stopped it, but Iran attacked for a couple more days. The Iranians improved their capabilities, were even better than during the 40 days of fighting. So Iran has been consistently getting better on the battlefield. Its capabilities are improving. And as we speak, the Iranians are preparing for the next phase. So although the Iranian economy is obviously hurting, and there's inflation and difficulty, but the Iranian armed forces are more prepared than ever before. So if the United States strikes, I think that the pain that the Iranians will inflict will be enormous. But the Iranian response will depend on the nature of U.S. strikes. But in any case, those countries that are assisting the United States in this war of aggression, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, the Emirates, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and so on, and Oman, they all have nothing to complain about if Iran strikes back, because they are a part of this war, and they are allies of the United States. They have assisted the United States and the Israeli regime in any way or form possible. They assisted the Israeli regime because during the 40-day war, the Saudi territory was being used, and so was the territory of Qatar and others, where their airplanes, their planes would fly and then refuel Israeli jets. So they were effectively, by assisting the United States, they were assisting the Israeli regime too. So it's not as if the Saudis and the Qataris and the Emiratis and the Kuwaitis were just helping the United States or the Jordanians. They were helping the Israelis, both during the 12-day war, because Israeli jets need American refuelers, refueling planes. During the 12-day war, they assisted the Israelis, and the 40-day war, and so they've been a part of the assault on the Iranian people for multiple years. The Saudis in particular, Jordan in particular, but also the rest of them.
Saudi Arabia is continuing the war against Yemen inside Yemen, and last night we've learned that at least 4 or 5 of these commanders brigaders, generals in Yemen were hit by drones and missiles from Houthis, from Ansarullah. It means I'm talking about the pro-Saudi or Saudi forces in Yemen fighting Ansarullah. And
Remember, they just to clarify, the Yemen is the capital of Yemen is Sana'a. It is controlled by Ansarullah and its allies. The government of Yemen is the government that is in Sana'a. For well over a decade, the Saudis and the Emiratis and the West and these regimes in the Persian Gulf and Egypt and Turkey and everyone worked together and helped the Saudis and the Emiratis to dislodge Ansarullah and its allies from Sana'a. But they failed. Why? Because the people support Ansarullah. And so, the entire West and its regional proxies together were working to undermine Ansarullah. And they carried out a genocidal war, just like in Gaza. They starved the people. They slaughtered people. They bombed schools, hospitals. They bombed weddings and school buses and funerals. They did all the sort of the things that we would see in Gaza. Only it was done in silence. The global support, the regional support that we saw grow after Gaza, we didn't see that with Yemen. It was just Iran that supported the people of Yemen, and people, many people in the West who were protesting, who were trying to put pressure on the United States to change its policies. But there was no sympathy. Despite all that, when Gaza was under assault, it was Yemen, it was Ansarullah that stood up for Gaza, not the Saudis, not the Emiratis, not Turkey, not Egypt, not Jordan, not any of these countries. And that's why the United States attacked them. So the government of Yemen, the real government of Yemen, is the government in Sana'a. That means Ansarullah, or what the West likes to call the Houthis. But it's not really Houthis. It's much broader than a tribe. It's the vast majority of the people of Yemen. 80% of the population of Yemen live in the territories controlled by the government in Sana'a. So you're absolutely correct. The Saudis have been using their mercenaries, because they are mercenaries, to attack Ansarullah during the last few days, but they failed. The Ansarullah has been striking them hard across the board. And again, so even though the Saudis, they speak of the legitimate government in Yemen, that's the government that was endorsed by the UN Security Council was only endorsed because of Saudi wealth and Emirati wealth. Otherwise, it's not the legitimate government. It's only the government on paper. The real government is the government that's in Sana'a, the capital. And they've done a very good job over the last few days defending the country against the Saudis and their mercenaries.
We've talked about the situation with Saudi Arabia. We know, I don't believe that the United States would attack Yemen even in those old days just because of they want to do this. They have to get paid by Saudi Arabia. It means that Saudi Arabia is paying everybody to attack Yemen. What are they seeking for? What do they want? Do you see any sort of learning curve in Saudi Arabia with what's going on? Yesterday, we learned that another Saudi tanker was hit in the al-Mandab, and they're putting pressure on Saudi Arabia with the blockade. They know how fragile is their economy, Saudi economy, and Yemen, I would say for more than 12 years, they have nothing to lose. They want to fight to the end, but it doesn't seem that Saudi Arabia is perceiving that.
Well, what Yemen wants is that after the Saudis lost the genocidal war against Yemen, and again, the Saudis were like the Israeli regime. They starved people with the help of the Americans and others. They starved the people. They imposed a siege in the Red Sea to prevent food from getting in. They wanted to starve people. That was the objective, just like Gaza. And they did that. Many people died of illness and starvation and so on in Yemen. One of the forgotten crimes